What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. I planned on making this video a few days ago, Wednesday night actually, when all of these reports came out. But there was just so much going on, and I wanted to read through everything and kind of like give myself an idea of what I was getting into before I just put it on camera and just go with it. Wednesday, when Koberger was sentenced, I think it at around like 3 p.m., maybe 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, the Idaho Police Department finally released all of, well, I won't say all of, but a very large amount of documents. And I figured we would go one by one. I know every single person who is covering true crime has either A, already done this, B, is doing it for the second time, or C, is kind of like me and it's overwhelming. It's a lot of stuff, and I have to do things in order. I don't feel right like going from page 1 to page 15. I want to go through this thoroughly, and I'm sure that we will learn something new. Even if you've seen everything, think you've heard everything, I'm finding things out like from other creators that read through, combed through these better than other content creators had, and they're bringing more things to light. So today we're going to go over as many documents as we can. This may be a couple different parts. This may lead us into July 31st, our last day. I'm not sure. We will see. But we are going to start, by the way, if you don't know anything about the Idaho 4 Bryan Koberger case, Bryan Koberger killed 4 Idaho college students, slaughtered them. It was completely horrific in 2022, and he pled guilty to all counts and was sentenced last Wednesday. So I will insert photos throughout this to kind of give everybody more of a general idea. Maybe if you don't know much about the case, I would definitely say get a debriefing on the case first before jumping into here. But enough of me talking. Let's get into this. Page 1. This looks like this is a incident report. We have at the top, we have the case number, nature is homicide, city, Moscow, numbers and all of that. Some things are still redacted. There's a lot actually that's still redacted. There are subpoenas with descriptions that go so far down. I wish I could. There we go. A lot are, we have the offender, we have who's Bryan Koberger. A ton of witnesses, the victims, Kaylee, Ethan, Xana, Madison, Mogan. And it leads into subpoenas for his Hyundai Elantra, I think the Land Rover, all the vehicles. Kaylee had just gotten the Land Rover. That's actually why I believe she was over there that weekend, was she wanted to show the roommates, because she no longer really lived there. I don't think. She was just about to be done with college, or was done with college. I'm not completely sure. So, and then there was a Honda Civic, a Chevrolet Cruze, I think. A Jeep Wrangler was Ethan's red Jeep Wrangler, Ford Explorer, and then the initiating call was unconsciousness, Amazon items, tire repair kit, scissor jack, 1.5 ton, Cartman 3 triangles. Grand jury exhibit, prints, USB, DVD, vitamin bottle, supplement, interview, digital fingerprints, DNA extracts, fingerprints, screenshots, PPD, info 2, fingerprints, data, DVD, Koberger's jail calls. Apparently, we're not going to get Koberger's jail calls. I guarantee you that within a few years, maybe we will. Maybe. Imagine. That'd be wild. Brian Koberger's phone, his hard drives, some USBs, a laptop. One thing that I have a very hard time believing that Koberger wasn't Papa Roger. And the police were saying that like he had nothing to do with Papa Roger, wasn't Papa Roger. But then after listening to other people that have been covering this case, I think he just wiped all that evidence off of his computer. I mean, he knew somewhat of what he was doing, clearly not everything because he was convicted. But the Papa Roger thing, that just like, will the real Papa Roger please stand up then? Like, please come out so we know that it wasn't Brian Koberger. DNA extracts, pollen test, a lot of like dog impound form, screenshot emails, x-rays. They did x-ray the bodies, sample cutting, Xana's old phone data, TikTok data, YouTube data, Pullman Road, Nom Nom. Don't know what that is. Jail calls, soil kit, PayPal data, Elantra plate, Happy Day, Walgreens DVDs, Stinker USB, Exxon Mobil USB, Cafe Arista. So just a ton of random. I'm believing that these are items, USBs, also like any kind of data, footage being pulled from any camera source. So they had like the vape shop video, corner club USB, so footage from that. Looks like some gas stations, and then of course there's a ton of other redacted stuff. I did see the K-bar sharpener, Vans shoes, because they were talking about there being a footprint in the backyard, I think it was, and it measured around a size 13 or 14 men's shoe, and it had the same imprints of a Vans shoe. I don't think Koberger was cool enough to wear Vans. Converse shoes, wanted shoes, DM note, hair and fibers. We're talking everything. I mean, it's crazy to think that all of the evidence. Oh, wow. Some Mary Jane, gas pedals, H2O bottles, books, magazines, face masks, DNA clippings, pillows, lollipop stick, flossers, Dunkin' cup and lid, popsicle stick, beer cans, cigarette butts, power cords, right sock, left sock, jewelry, ankle swabs, hand swabs. Oh, wow. Anal swabs, vaginal swabs, money, powder, blood sample. And then a ton of names that I'm assuming would be called for Law incident offenses detail. Mitch Nunes, Eric Warner. Some of this is like reading a different language. I'm not familiar with. Okay. This is going to be disturbing. This is I have read over these several times already. And basically the whole internet has, I know, but maybe there's somebody who hasn't or wants to watch long form content instead of these short form breakdowns. So this is a general narrative outline. The offense: homicide. Synopsis: Kaylee J. Gonzalez, Ethan J. Chapin, Xana A. Kernodle, and Madison M. Mogan were found deceased inside 1122 King Road. Total property value damaged, stolen in A. Watchguard, yes. Additional responding officers, BWCs, Snyder, Warner, Nunes. I'm sorry. Warner, Nunes, Smith, Morris, Rosinski. Case number added to WG, evidence NA. Narrative. On 11/13/2022, at approximately 11:56 hours, MPD officers responded to an unconscious call. The RP, later identified as redacted, reported her roommate was passed out, not conscious, and not breathing. The redacted portion in that segment is Bethany Funk, and she was the one who reported her roommate was passed out, not conscious, and not breathing. As I was preparing to leave the station, Officer Nunes, who was already on scene, advised of a likely homicide and asked for additional units. While I was en route, Officer Nunes advised he had located 2 additional victims. The victims were later identified as Kaylee J. Gonzalez, Ethan J. Chapin, Xana A. Kernodle, and Madison M. Mogan. Moscow EMS was asked to stage and not respond to scene unless requested. Upon arrival, I saw redacted crouching near the entrance to 1122 King Road. Redacted was in obvious emotional distress. I entered through the first floor door, which faces north towards the parking lot. I announced myself as a Moscow police officer and heard Officer Nunes and Warner respond from upstairs. When I got to the second floor, I saw a female covered in blood in the bedroom on the northwest side of the second floor. I believe this female to be Xana. I looked inside the bedroom. Xana was laying, and it was obvious an intense struggle had occurred. Xana was obviously deceased. There was blood smeared on various items in the room and all over the floor. There was blood cast off on the walls in various places, including above Xana's body towards the west. I'm sorry. There was blood cast off on the walls in various places, including above Xana's body. Xana was on her back on the floor in the center of the room with her head towards the west. Xana was in her underwear and a long-sleeved gray shirt. Both her shirt and underwear were covered in blood. Xana's face and body was covered in dried blood. I could see what appeared to be defensive knife wounds on Xana's hands. There was a deep gash on Xana's left hand between her pointer finger and thumb. A partially covered male was on the bed and also obviously deceased. I believe this male to be Ethan Chapin. The midsection of Ethan's body was covered with a blanket. Ethan's head wasn't visible and appeared to be between the bed and the south wall. There was some blood cast off and what appeared to be an arterial blood spray above where Ethan's head was located. I proceeded upstairs to the third floor where I met Officer Nunes and Warner. Officer Nunes and Warner advised the residence was clear of any additional people. There was a dog belonging to Kaylee in the third floor west bedroom, which has access to the third floor deck. The deck has no exterior access to the ground level. I asked Snyder to cordon off the area and Officer Nunes to start identifying the subjects that were on scene when he arrived. I asked Officer Warner to start a crime scene log at the front entrance. Once Officer Smith arrived on scene, I asked him to stand guard at the kitchen sliding door, which I later learned was ajar upon our arrival. On the third floor, I went to the southeast bedroom where Officer Nunes and Warner advised they found two females whom I believe to be Kaylee and Madison. Both females were obviously deceased. I observed Kaylee lying on the north side of the bed and Madison lying on the south side of the bed with their heads towards the east. Kaylee and Madison were covered by a pink blanket which was covered in blood. There was a large pool of blood near Kaylee's midsection. There was blood cast off on the east and north walls above Kaylee and Madison. Madison appeared to be laying up against Kaylee. Madison had what appeared to be wounds to her forearm and hands. Madison had a gash under her right eye, which appeared to go from the corner of her eye to her nose. Kaylee was unrecognizable as her facial structure was extremely damaged. I asked Officer Nunes to close the door to the bedroom so the dog did not try to disturb the scene. Other than that, Action and PD patrol officers left the scene as it was found. I was later confirmed with Officer Nunes that no EMS personnel entered the prior to my arrival. I contacted Captain Barrett and advised him of the situation. Captain Barrett said he would activate detectives and get more resources en route. Once Detective Sergeant Lawrence arrived on scene, he requested one of the responding patrol officers. Once Detective Sergeant Lawrence arrived on scene, he requested one of the responding patrol officers begin writing a search warrant, which was assigned to Officer Nunes. Snyder was assigned to take initial photos of the scene while Officer Smith and Warner remained as security at both entrances. I collected the dog from the third floor and took it outside. LCSO Deputy Olson transported the dog to the Humane Society on my behalf. Officer Nunes was interviewing a large group of individuals which were associated with the residents. Officer Nunes asked that I finish getting contact information from the individuals I contacted and later added the following names to this call. All the names are redacted. And there are two that are 1122 King Road residents, and we know that that's Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk. Once those individuals' names were collected, they responded to the MPD to be interviewed by detectives. I assisted with a canvass of the area and was assigned the southernmost apartments at redacted Queen Road. I contacted the residents following the apartments whom claimed they didn't hear anything, and I attempted contact at the following apartments with no response, and there is no apartment redacted or redacted. I remained associated with the call and assisted with scene security until approximately 1800 hours. Other information, photos attached, follow-up needed, undeveloped leads, refer to Detective Sergeant Blacker and CPL Payne, case status active, referred to specialty, yes, detectives. I certify or declare under penalty of perjury, pursuant to the law of the state of Idaho, that the foregoing is true and correct. This is an initial response and scene security number 171. And this is another one that is very graphic. On 11/13/2022 at about 1200 hours, I responded to 1122 King Road and reference to possible homicide victims. Officer Nunes had arrived on scene and found a total of 4 deceased individuals. Officer Nunes informed other units he believed this to be a homicide. When I arrived, I entered the residence and went to the second floor. I observed a female wearing a sweatshirt and underwear laying in the middle of the bedroom floor, covered in blood. I observed deep lacerations indicative of defensive wounds on the female's hands. The female was surrounded by blood on the floor. I observed a male laying on the bed. The male appeared to have suffered from stab wounds and a laceration to the neck. The male was covered in blood and bedding around him, and the bedding around him was soaked in blood. I do want to add that before any of this came out, it was stated, somebody at some point stated that Ethan's legs had been carved into post-mortem. I have not read about any of that anywhere. So I don't know if that is something that is valid or not. At this point, I don't believe so, because I've read through all of these and have not seen anything of that sort. In a third floor bedroom, I observed 2 females laying in a third floor bedroom. I observed 2 females laying in a bed which appeared to have been stabbed to death. The female laying on the left half of the bed, as I looked at it from the doorway, was unrecognizable. Her face was completely disfigured and was stabbed several times. I was unable to comprehend exactly what I was looking at while trying to discern the nature of the injuries. The second female on the right half of the bed had multiple stab wounds. The comforter was soaked in blood and a pool of blood was still present. I was assigned to hold security at the rear slider door. This was the alleged point of entry of the suspect. I observed very large footprints in the snow. I used a tape measure and the shoe size of about 13.5 to 14 inches. The footsteps went from the rear slider door. I observed the trail of footsteps head away from the slider door, then turn right around a stump in the backyard and lead toward the front of the house. I observed a set of small handprints on the window to the east of the slider. The screen to this window appeared damaged and was laying on the ground. I located smudged fingerprints on the glass slider door. There was a discarded black backpack in the backyard. I photographed these items and attached them to the case. I maintained rear security until I was relieved by Officer Warner. The only person to enter from this point was Captain Lanier at about 15:27 hours. That one. On 11/13/2022, on 11/13/22 at approximately 11:58 hours, I responded to a report of an unconscious person at 1122 King Road. Dispatch advised a female was passed out from intoxication and was not waking up. Dispatch advised there was a male seen in the room with the female last night. A short time later, dispatch advised the female was not conscious and not breathing. As I arrived, Officer Nunes advised over the air it appeared to be a homicide. I saw a small group of females outside the home in the parking lot. One female advised their roommate was on the second floor and needed help. I went to Officer Nunes' location at the west bedroom on the second floor and passed a male in the living room later identified as, I believe, Hunter. And then the other is redacted. Officer Nunes advised the female and male in the bedroom had blood on them and appeared to be beyond help. I walked out of the bedroom towards redacted and saw a clean steak knife on a beer pong table. I pointed out the knife to Officer Nunes. Redacted said that he got the steak knife from the kitchen because he arrived and saw the female on the bedroom floor covered in blood, and he did not know if there was anyone else present in the room. Redacted said he checked the room with the knife for protection. Officer Nunes and I walked to the first floor entrance with Redacted, which I believe is Hunter. I asked the females and Hunter if there was anyone else in the apartment, and they did not know. I told Officer Nunes the home was not secure, and we started the process of clearing it. On the third floor in the southeast bedroom, I saw two clothed females laying on a bed on their backs who appeared deceased. One female on the left side of the bed in relation to the bedroom door had an extreme amount of lacerations to her face and upper body, which made her unrecognizable. The other female had multiple lacerations on her upper body and some blood on her face. I walked to the far side of the bed to determine if the female on the right was beyond help. I saw the female's leg was off the edge of the bed and it had lividity. Once I noticed the lividity in the female's legs, I backed out of the room. Officer Nunes and I checked the rest of the third floor and saw it was clear. There was a poodle in the west bedroom on the bed, which was later taken to the Humane Society by LCSO. After clearing the home, I briefly interviewed Redacted, said he was at his apartment. Redacted and his girlfriend, redacted, received a phone call from the girls who lived at 1122, from one of the girls who lived at 1122 King Road. Redacted said Redacted was called by one of the residents who said they could not wake the female on the floor. Redacted said he came over to the home at approximately 11:55 hours. Redacted said he saw the female on the floor in the bedroom and did not see the male on the bed, who he identified as Ethan. Before grabbing the knife, Redacted said he entered the bedroom and checked the female's pulse and found none. Redacted said he did not check Ethan and left the home. I thanked Redacted for talking with me and told him he could go stand with Redacted, who was with the other residents in the front of the home. I stood by the front of the door and started the crime scene log at 12:15 hours. Sergeant Gunderson relieved me for approximately 3 minutes so that I could go get my gloves during my time at the front door. At approximately 15:02 hours, I was relieved by Officer Rosinski, who took possession of the crime scene log, and I returned to the station. At approximately 15:28 hours, I came back to the scene and relieved Officer Smith, who was standing at the rear sliding glass door, which was found open when officers arrived. I remained at the back door until I was relieved by Officer Nunes at approximately 16:28 hours. On 11/13/2022, at approximately 11:56 hours, I responded to an unconscious subject at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. Upon my arrival, I found a large gathering of people in the parking lot immediately north of the 1122 King Road residence. 1122 King Road is a white 3-story single-family residence with multiple bedrooms. The 112 designation is located directly above the front door facing north. I was directed to a bedroom on the second floor by Redacted in the northwest corner to locate the unresponsive female. Upon entering the bedroom, I observed a female lying supine, so on her back, on the floor next to a bed. According to Redacted, this female was likely Kaylee J. Gonzalez. Redacted was also lived at 1122 King Road. I think that's Dylan. I observed dried blood surrounding Kaylee's body and signs of cutting trauma to her face. I think that was actually Xana, and that comes to find out later. Kaylee was covered in. I observed dried blood surrounding Kaylee's body and signs of cutting trauma to her face. Kaylee was covered in so much blood I wasn't able to immediately discern where any additional injuries would have likely been. Kaylee was apparently deceased due to her pale skin, rigid body tone, and apparent blood loss. On the bed in the same room I observed Kaylee, I observed a male lying supine on the bed. Okay, yeah, so that was mixed around in this report. On the bed in the same room, I observed Kaylee. I observed a male lying supine on his back. On the bed, according to, I think it's Dylan, it's redacted, the male was likely Ethan J. Chapin. Dylan said Ethan was commonly at the residence. I observed blood covering portions of. Redacted said Ethan was commonly at the residence. I observed blood covering portions of Ethan's legs surrounding his body. I observed blood covering portions of Ethan's legs. His body, well, maybe that does coincide with the whole carving thing that we heard about. Surrounding his body into the bed sheets and drops of blood on the wall near Ethan's head. As I backed out of the room, Redacted showed me a kitchen knife and said he had it in his possession. I told Redacted to leave the knife and go back downstairs to the front entrance. Officer Warner and I moved to visually clear the residence for any suspects or additional victims. On the third floor, Officer Warner and I found 2 additional, apparently deceased females, both laying supine in a bed. This bedroom was on the southwest corner of the 3rd floor. According to Redacted, these 2 females were likely Xana A. Kernodle and Madison M. Mogan. So they did have that switched around. Xana was the first one they found with Ethan, obviously. And this one, this was Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison M. Mogan. One female showed an apparent These 2 females were. One female showed an apparent traumatic injury to her face due to the basic facial structure being unrecognizable. This was Kaylee Gonsalves. Steve Gonsalves, Kaylee's dad, came out and said the day of the sentencing, once it was finished, that was it the day after? I think it was during an interview with Ashley Banfield that Brian Koberger actually punched Kaylee's teeth out. And that was one of the forms of the deformity, other than the fact that he stabbed her multiple times in her head as well. Both females showed very pale skin. Both females were covered in dried blood and apparently deceased. After the residence was deemed safe, Officer Warner and I exited the residence to secure it and the immediate area, to include the parking lot immediately to the north of the residence. I walked outside and began interviewing Redacted. Redacted told me at approximately 0400 hours, she heard a voice scream and believed it to be Kaylee's. Redacted said she could hear Kaylee run from the 3rd floor down the stairs to the 2nd floor into the northwest bedroom. Redacted said she locked herself in her bedroom and continued to hear a commotion. Redacted said eventually she stopped hearing a struggle and heard a male voice say, "You're gonna be fine. I'm gonna help you." Redacted said she did not recognize the male's voice. Redacted said after a few minutes, she peeked out of the bedroom and observed a male described as approximately 6 feet tall, slim build, with a black ski mask leave the 2nd floor patio area. This patio door was likely left open as it was found open upon my arrival. I interviewed an additional roommate, redacted, who told me that she was at the residence during the commotion. Redacted said she was on the second floor in the living room watching Vampire Diaries with Redacted and an unidentified person named Redacted. Redacted said at approximately 0200 hours at 11/13/22, Madison and Kaylee came home from a night out at the Corner Club bar located at Redacted in Moscow, Idaho. Redacted said that she also believed Madison and Kaylee went to the Grub, which is like the Grub truck, which is like a food truck, and it also has a live camera feed. Wandering kitchen truck that was commonly located in the 300 block of South Main Street. Redacted said she and Madison let Madison's dog out. Redacted said that she and Madison let Madison's dog out, Murphy, sometime between 0200 hours and 0230 hours. Redacted said during this time, she observed no suspicious activity. Redacted said she returned inside while Madison was still outside with Murphy. Redacted said she went to bed at around 0230 hours. Redacted said Madison came into her bedroom sometime after 0230 hours to ask if she knew where Murphy was. Redacted said she told Madison no, and Madison left. Redacted said she woke up in her bedroom, which was located on the first floor, to a sound she described as a firecracker in a flash. Redacted said she initially thought this was a prank. Redacted said that initially she thought that this was a prank. According to Redacted phone log, according to Redacted's phone log, she showed me Redacted called Xana at 0421 hours, Ethan at 0422 hours, Madison at 0422 hours, Madison again at 0430 hours, and then Kaylee at 0431 hours. Redacted said she never received an answer on each phone call. Redacted said she went back to sleep and woke up around 11:56 hours when 911 was called. Initially, I was told Kaylee was likely located on the second floor bedroom with Ethan. Switch that around, that's Xana. Initially, I was told Xana was likely located on the second floor bedroom with Ethan. After comparing Redacted initial statement with the other investigations, officers' observations that appear to actually be Xana that was located on the floor of that bedroom, and Kaylee was one of the other females located in the third floor room. I also observed the following vehicles in the gravel parking lot that was immediately north of the 1122 building. Silver 2015 Land Rover with Washington license plate, Redacted. A blue 2010 Honda Civic with Arizona license plate. A white 2014 Chevrolet Cruze with an Idaho license plate. A red 2011 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, that was Ethan Chapin's. A black 2017 Ford Explorer with a Washington license plate. I was originally assigned to identify all of the people in the area. However, I was reassigned by Sergeant Gunderson to begin the search warrant of application process. I provided the above information to the search warrant application at approximately 16:28 hours. I returned to 1122 King Road to assist with securing the southwest patio entrance. I took responsibility from Officer Warner in documenting who entered and exited the residence. I provided this documentation on a notepad and maintained the log until I was relieved by Officer Morris at approximately 1750 hours. The following information is the rear patio entry log from 1517 hours until 2115 hours. And then we have the log of the patio who came and went. On 11/13/22 at about 1200 hours, I responded to 1122 King Road for the report of an unresponsive subject. Upon my arrival, I noticed there were several college-age subjects out front of the address. I was directed to use police caution tape to cordon off the crime scene. As I was working around the residence, I noticed the back door was open and there were footprints in the snow coming from the back door on the back porch. Officer Smith took photos of these prints with a measuring tape. He watched the backyard area to make sure no one else came in the area. I noticed there were a few footprints that left towards the west of the backyard. This portion of the backyard is connected to two other residences, 118 King Road and 1126 King Road, both directly to the west. The footprints appear to lead west towards King Road between the residences, but I was unable to see where the footprints went after the yards connected due to the amount of rock landscaping. I also was unable to discern how old these prints were. There had not been any recent snowfall. With Sergeant Gunderson, I realize you guys can't see this. With Sergeant Gunderson, I entered the residence to continue taking photos of the scene. I entered through the bottom floor main door on the north side. I took photographs of the rooms and living areas of the residence. The photos were downloaded onto a CD and booked into evidence. The photos were labeled in this report with a brief description of each photo. As I was down the road of the address near King Road and Queen Road intersection, I was approached by a college-aged male who identified himself as Redacted. He informed me he lived at Redacted King Road apartment. Redacted, he stated his redacted lived upstairs at 1122 King Road. They shared a dog that was there currently. I believe this is Jack, and Jack was Kaylee's boyfriend. Redacted did not appear to have any obvious wounds on his hands, as I would assume the suspect possibly would have. Officer Noons was interviewing subjects about the situation. I asked Jack if he would wait inside Officer Noon's police car so we could talk with him. He agreed. I informed Sergeant Gunderson of the circumstance involving Jack. Jack later responded to the police department to be interviewed and then picked up the dog from the Moscow Humane Society shelter. I continued to canvass the area and speak with neighbors at Redacted and Redacted Queen Road. Who stated they did not hear or see anything relevant. I spoke with subjects at Redacted King Road. One resident, Redacted, stated she was walking home from the corner club at about 0300 hours and thought she could hear music or some type of noise, but she couldn't give any clarifying information more than that due to her level of intoxication that night. I spoke with subjects at Redacted King Road. The majority of them stated they were out drinking at the corner club and got a ride back to their place at about 0130 hours and went to sleep about 0200 hours. They did not hear anything out of the ordinary. Redacted King Road, Redacted resident, Redacted stated that at about 0400 hours, he heard a dog barking coming from the east of his residence. He believed it was a dog at 1122 King Road, as he thought that this was the only dog living in that area. He stated the dog sounded like it was outside and was barking for about 45 minutes until he believed someone must have let it inside at 0445 when it stopped. He stated the dog sounded like it was outside and was barking for about 45 minutes until he believed someone must have let it inside at 0445 when it stopped. Redacted stated he had a female with him in the bed at the time who also heard the dog barking at this time. I spoke with the residents at Redacted King Road. Redacted informed me they had a camera facing the west of the address they believed captures a portion of the road. They first provided me with a SIM card out of the camera. However, they could not get it to work, and neither could I. They gave me the username and the password to the camera. I informed Detective Maori of the information, and they gave me permission to access the camera footage and record the necessary surveillance video. I cleared the scene at about 17:49 hours. And then it shows a photo log. So they took a photo of the front of the house, key on retaining wall north of house, parking lots, more vehicles, the back seats of vehicles. Oh gosh. VIN numbers, every room in the house. Second floor west bedroom, female victim. Second floor west bedroom, female victim. Second floor west bedroom, male victim. Second floor west bedroom, foot of bed, male victim, female victim. Every single thing in the house. Not just the victims. Third floor southeast bedroom, 2 female victims. More cars. All right, we're going to finish off this video because we're almost at an hour already. And we are on, I believe this is the 5th document. Yes. And then we'll carry on into another video. This is another narrative report from another officer. On November 13, 2022, at approximately 12:53 hours, I arrived on scene at 1122 King Road and spoke with Sergeant Gunderson and Sergeant Lawrence, who gave me a brief overview of the information gathered at that time. Sergeant Lawrence informed me that the Idaho State Police were going to assist in the investigation and were organizing to respond to the scene. Sergeant Lawrence responded to the police department to begin interviews. I remained on scene on the perimeter awaiting further information. Approximately 1 hour later, a male approached the scene and began speaking with Sergeant Gunderson. The male was identified as redacted. I overheard redacted state his daughter lived in 1122 King Road, and he had been trying to get in touch with her, but was unsuccessful. It was also learned redacted's daughter, redacted was nearby the scene. I asked redacted if he and redacted could come to the police department to speak with me. Redacted agreed, and I returned to the police department. I contacted Sergeant Lawrence and the state police department and asked if he had the names of the victims. Sergeant Lawrence stated he did and gave me the list. I saw one of the victims' names was Xana A. Kernodle. I then met with redacted and redacted in the interview room off of the police department lobby. Once in the room, I activated the audio and video recording equipment. I asked redacted and redacted for their information, and they both handed me their Arizona driver's licenses. After writing down their information, I asked redacted what the name of his other daughter was. Redacted told me her name was Xana. I then informed redacted that Xana was identified as one of those victims and that she was deceased. Both redacted and redacted became very upset and were crying heavily. I asked redacted when the last time they communicated with Xana was. Redacted stated she texted with Xana on 11/11/22 at approximately 1700 hours. Redacted said that the last text messages were brief and were not of any substance. Redacted said he texted Xana on 11/11/22 at around 1540 hours, and she responded stating she was at work. Redacted then told me he last spoke with Xana on the phone on 11/11/22 at approximately 2140 hours when they spoke about going to the WSU football game. I asked redacted where Xana worked, and he said at Mad Greek. I asked both redacted and redacted if Xana had mentioned anything about having any issues with anyone or anything strange occurring lately. I asked both redacted and redacted If Xana had mentioned anything about having any issues with anyone or anything strange occurring lately. Both redacted and redacted said Xana hadn't said anything. Xana redacted said Xana and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, they put Chapman, it's Chapin, who had been dating for about 6 months or so. Redacted said everything seemed fine with the relationship, and Redacted added how he met Ethan's parents in passing this weekend. It should be noted Redacted was in town visiting as he resides in Avondale, Arizona, and it was Washington State University's parents' weekend. I asked Redacted and Redacted if there was anyone they wished me to contact for them, or if they wished to speak with anyone such as a member of clergy. Both told me no. I gave them both my business card and informed them our detectives would be in contact with them in the near future. Redacted and Redacted then left the police department. And that is all for that one. Make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not. The next part to this is going to come out very soon. We will do these in hour segments. So let's see what the next one brings us. See you in the next one. Bye.